take these bracelets off because I can already tell they're gonna go and boom luma. Don't need that. Welcome back to The Church, the Court, and the Culture, a podcast that looks at religion, race, and the law and their intersection in American society. I'm your host, Brooke Gurley. Thank you for joining me again. If you haven't already, please be sure to follow this podcast on Substack, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And also, please be sure to follow me on social media. I am at Bluesky's World everywhere except because I finally went and checked, except on TikTok where I'm just Paluki. All right, no world, no Palukis, we're just Palukis. So follow me, and of course, be sure to like and share this podcast so that others can see it. All right, now that the housekeeping is done, I do not have a guest this week, but there has been a lot going on, so there's enough to say without a guest. It was just too much going on this past week. I just almost went on live and just like, I have to talk about this because I don't know what is happening. Monday started out with the bang, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but we had the president decided, you know what? I just want to take over DC and the police. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just going to evoke this very obscure rule that has never been evoked, that nobody really knows about. Right, I'm just going to start doing that. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. That is in the court segment of this podcast. So for now, let's start at the beginning with the church. And of course, I had to talk about this Christian nationalist interview that happened on CNN. I don't know if you all saw it, but they went to interview, I think his name, Pastor Douglas Wilson. And he is a Christian nationalist, not a white Christian nationalist, but a Christian nationalist. He does not identify as a white Christian nationalist, but I would venture to say that's kind of what's going on here. Because when you saw the footage of the people at the church, by and large, they were white people. They were white people who were buying into this message. But there were a lot of things that happened that were said in that interview that were problematic. And I can't get into everything, but I just kind of want to hit on the main thing. So like I said, he's a Christian nationalist. And in the interview, they start with him saying, you know what? I want this to be a Christian town. I want it to be a Christian state. I want it to be a Christian nation. I want it to be a Christian world, right? He wants to go out there. And as I'm listening to that, I'm okay. I know people have, ideas of Great Commission, go out and make disciples of all. But in my mind, I'm thinking, what does that really mean to you? Is it just about sharing the love of Jesus, which is what he said? Or is it related in some way to power and domination? Because historically, that has been kind of the case, right? When you think about the Crusades, think about this idea of colonizers going in to save the savages, right? You're saving their souls, but somehow they're working for you. You've enslaved them. So as I'm listening to that, I think this is, even though, again, he says he's not a white Christian nationalist, I think somehow this, if you peel back the layers, what you would see is that this is in fact tied into a sense of domination, of power, connecting it to power. Even all the people on their leadership boards, you can tell a person or a group, an organization, what they value by the leadership board. All white men, right? With the list that they showed, they were white men. They are very upfront about the fact that they only believe that men should be in leadership. And we'll get to that a little later. But the fact that they were all white men, again, I hear what you're saying, that you're not a white Christian nationalist, but why is it that the people in power are only white men? Is that how you intend to see? Is that how you see this Christian world that you want to create? Is it really one that is dominated by white men? Is that really what you're trying to do? Are you using your Christianity as an excuse to sort of reinscribe white power and white dominance in, not just in your town, your state, the nation, but in the world? It's just another way of getting at that. And if so, be honest about it, or really, I wish that they would sit back and reflect on, why am I really doing what I'm doing? Is this what Jesus wanted me to do? Did Jesus want me to go out and dominate people? Is that what the Great Commission was, to dominate people? Is that how Jesus said you would know that they're Christians? By your domination and your amassing of power? As he said, by domination, you will draw them. I believe it was by love and kindness you shall draw them, is what it says. But, and the way that they're going about it, it just seems like again, they are really trying to promote white domination, and they're using Christianity as a tool, as a mask, as an excuse, if you will. And it goes back to something I said in previous episodes, which is that we can't be serving the same God. Like I think, again, if you peel back the layers, whoever you serving is very different than the God that I'm serving. Like we're doing different things here. And why are you here promoting a particular very aggressive, very mean-spirited, very one that's about subjugation, especially the subjugation of women, which is the second part, another problematic parts of this interview. So you have these two men who were interviewed, I think they were associate pastors within this denomination, and they're talking about women voting. And one pastor says, I think we should just have one vote for the House. I'm okay with us discussing, and then I cast the vote. And so the interviewer was like, well, what if you and your wife disagree? And of course, he's like, well, I think that would be a great reason to have a good discussion, but ultimately be whatever he wants it to be. And then she said what about the, repealing the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote? And the other one was like, I think I'm okay with that, because he has a problem. They see the empowering of women as a negative thing, as I guess about the decline of society. And so it should go back to just one household and the men leading it, and the men really going out, making these decisions. And again, so that's what I'm saying. When I look at the within the Bible, you have women in leadership position. You had women who were prophets. You had women who were deacons. You had women who were serving along with Jesus. And so this idea of women are supposed to be at home, subjugated, is not biblical at all. So what is that about? And then what was interesting is Doug Wilson, in his interview, it starts off with him saying, it doesn't take much talent to reproduce biologically. Women are basically reproduced, but it doesn't take much talent. I'm like, says the person who can't do it ever. Like, it's impossible. You know what I mean? That is just like the ultimate in gaslighting. You take something that you can't do, no matter what, and you downgrade and say, oh, that's not important. It's only not important to you because you can't do it. It's something that women can do. So you take that as, well, that doesn't take talent to do. Meanwhile, it's just excruciating, just a bear on the body when women have babies. It is quite a miraculous thing, but I digress. But to sort of downplay that rather. Again, what kind of society are you building, do you intend to build with this domination? Again, I suspect that Christianity is a ruse really to mask the fact that they really are trying to bring about white domination, and that their version of Christianity is probably something very different than what is biblical. And so that's going on, and they're very open about it. I think that's also what's very striking to me, and I think it plays into what's going on in society at large, beyond just what's going on within Christianity. You have, like I was talking about the other week, this all-white community that is very blatant about excluding people, right? So it's one thing, because this came up in comments when I posted that. They're like, well, you have other towns like Freedom, Georgia, where it's a black town set up for black people. What about that? It's like, that's not an exclusive, like excluding town. Like, they're not out here trying to exclude people based on their race, gender, or whatever. They're not saying you can't come. They're saying we're creating a safe space for black people, and allies are welcome, right? People are welcomed. But just so you know, this is set up to be a safe space. That's different than what's happening in the Ozarks, where you have people saying you can't come in, right? You cannot come in. We're creating this our own thing. And so I see what's happening with that, with this idea of Christian nationalism. It's kind of all merging together. And in the end, it's going to be a disaster, right? Because these things always end up in some kind of scandal. And so I don't wish that on anyone, but it's just when you have this kind of very narrow thinking and people are shutting off their brains and not really doing their own studying, you end up with cult-like followings, you end up with a disaster, a scandal, where people are hurt and broken because they probably were looking for something to follow. And I forgot to mention this, what made this so extraordinary, too, is that interview with CNN was reposted by none other than Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, who attends this church, or he attended the first service that they held in D.C. And so it's just very remarkable to have the Secretary of Defense repost a news story where the people in the story are advocating that women lose their right to vote. And people like, oh, that would never happen. That would never. It can happen. Why wouldn't it happen? Why wouldn't it? What fail safes do we have in place that would actually help us? We don't. We think we do. We have illusions, but it could absolutely happen. Look what happened on DC, which that was so crazy. I'm getting to that, but there really is nothing to stop that from happening if people who want it to happen are determined enough, and the people who don't think it will happen are lazy enough and sort of complacent enough. Then we can go all the way back, right? We can go back to slavery if we're not careful. So I think the boldness of someone in high office like Pete Hegseth to repost an interview where they're saying women shouldn't vote, it should be an alarm. It should absolutely be an alarm. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm overreacting. Although I don't think it's possible to overreact in this administration. I just don't. But maybe. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what if you saw this interview and what you were thinking when you saw that. And maybe you feel like, no, there's nothing wrong with wanting to spread the gospel of Jesus, and that's all this is. You're reading more into it than there is. I don't know. We'll see. Leave me a comment. All right. Now that we have talked about the church, which actually merged with the culture, which merged with the courts, I want to get to the thing that was upsetting me at the top of the episode. And that's what happened on Monday, or whatever day was that, August 11th to 2025, when President Trump decided he wants to take over DC because there's a state of emergency with this increase in crime, or like crime was rampant, even though crime has been down and is lower than it's been in decades. And even though somehow he didn't feel the need to declare an emergency during January 6th, when there was an actual insurrection and people's lives were at stake, and actually people died. That wasn't enough. No. In a time of peace, when crime is down, that's when he wanted to declare a state of emergency. All right. So normally in this segment, we talk about the court, and I think this could potentially end up as a court case. So much of what Trump has done has ended up in the courts, and I would not be surprised if this somehow ends up in the court. All right, I'm interrupting the normally scheduled podcast to provide this update. As I have been saying, I knew that the DC was very likely to file a lawsuit, and in fact, they did file a lawsuit against the Trump administration Friday morning, August 15th, saying essentially that the Trump administration, Trump and Bondi, all of them, exceeded their authority under the home rule. Their limited authority to take over the Metropolitan Police. This suit was filed in the Federal District Court, and it was filed by DC's Attorney General. So anyway, again, an update. We knew it was coming. I knew it was going to happen. I wanted to make sure that it got into this episode because I was saying I suspect, and boom, it is here, Friday, August 15th. They have filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration. All right, back to our regularly scheduled podcast. But I want to kind of think about, how did we get here? Like, what rule did he actually evoke? Is this legal? What does this really mean? And so I just want to use this segment to sort of discuss that, and then also give you my thoughts on what's really going on here, which obviously is about getting rid of the Black and brown people in DC, cleaning it up, as one influencer said. They really just want to get rid of us. So on Monday, August 11th, he evoked DC's home rule, Section 740. And this is a law that was created in 1973. And so just to back up as to what does this all mean? Why is there this rule? So you have to kind of understand DC, and very quickly, I'll just explain it. So DC is a special city, right? It's the capital. Doesn't belong in a state. It's its own thing. But as such, it has limited local rule. Like residents have limited control over their local affairs. A lot of it is approved by Congress, so they can elect on mayor. But like the budget and judges and all of that, it can be up to either Congress. The president can appoint judges, so they have limited control over that. And in this act in 1973, the Home Rule Act, there is section 740, and it reads, I'm just going to read it straight up so you all can get the exact language of it. Section 740 reads, whenever the President of the United States determines that special conditions of an emergency nature exist, which require the use of the Metropolitan Police Force for federal purposes, he may direct the mayor to provide him, and the mayor shall provide. It's so interesting, I pause, that they're assuming that the president will always be male. But let's keep going. And the mayor shall provide such services of the Metropolitan Police Force as the president may deem necessary and appropriate. And then it goes on to sort of give the time frame, right? It says, except to the extent provided for in the list of other subsections, no such services made available pursuant to the direction of the president, pursuant to subsection A, which is what I just read, of this section, shall extend for any period in excess of 30 days unless the Senate and House of Representatives enact into law a joint resolution authorizing an extension. So basically, what this law is saying is that the president does have a right to direct the mayor of DC to allow him to use the police, the Metropolitan Police, for federal purposes. Again, he didn't feel the need to do that during January 6th. Somehow that was not an emergency enough. But in the midst of nothing happening, he felt it was an emergency, and this rule, which has not been used before, gave him the right to do it. But it's limited. Like there's a 30-day window where after that he has to have congressional approval of that. Now, if you listen before, it says that there has to be an emergency. It doesn't define what that means, right? What exactly is determined to be a condition of emergency nature exists. Those special conditions of an emergency nature exist. We don't know what exactly that means. That could be litigated. I think it should be. But even still, I feel like with this court, we already know where this is going to go. But ultimately, we know that whatever is happening is probably going to expire within that 30 days because he doesn't really, I don't think Trump's not really trying to fight, but he is trying to send a message to people because in that press conference, he said, we're going to take over other cities. Well, what are those cities? They were cities that are predominantly Black and run by Black mayors, right? Like LA, for example. So he's trying to send a message saying that we are trying to remove from power Black people. This is also going on in the background when you have redistricting maps, which again could also go into this court section, right? You have people gerrymandering in Texas trying to redraw the districts. In Florida, they approved, the Supreme Court there just approved the elimination of Black districts in the redrawing of the maps there. Now you do have Gavin Newsom out in California saying, hey, you do that, I'll do this, and I have more votes to move around and to counter anything that you're doing. But collectively, what I'm seeing, what was just so extraordinary, what happened with Trump, is that it is just the height of saying, we are about the elimination of Black people from positions of power. You also have this attack on DEI that is almost basically saying, stop giving Black people admissions into colleges, right? And you have this sort of push for having Black people to be working in certain jobs. So they're slowly trying to put us back into the cotton fields. Let's just be real with it. This is them trying to put us back into the work fields to re-enslave us. This is Jim Crow 2.0. The re-enslavement of Black people. And I know, again, people may think this is very hyperbolic to think about based on what happened. But if the president is going in and he's naming Black cities and saying, I'm going to go in and do the same thing, then we need to take heed. Because that's really what this is about. This is about removing Black people from power. Again, there's this broader movement to reinscribe white power, white dominance throughout the world, definitely in the West, definitely in America. And so they're being very blatant. This reminds me of the period, I think they call it the Great Nadir. So after Reconstruction, you had Reconstruction, which was this period after slavery where they're trying to integrate Black people into society, including giving them political power. as you can imagine, it upset the former slave owners. And as a result, they went in sort of did this counterattack and just completely, that's what, to my point, could it happen? It has happened before. Black people had rights. Black people could vote. Black people could vote when white people couldn't vote during Reconstruction. The former slaveholders, those former Confederates could not vote, but black people could vote and serve on the juries. But then in a short period of time, that was flipped. And the result was Jim Crow, the total subjugation, and even convict leasing. So you have people being re-enslaved. That is what this feels like now. Because I always wonder, how did that happen without some kind of fight? And I see we are in that place where you have the president of the United States saying, I'm going to remove black people from power. I'm going to remove their positions from colleges, and I'm going to sort of try to force them to be relegated into certain positions, lowly positions that they normally wouldn't take, but what we want them to have, because we're going to get rid of them immigrants who work in those positions, and we're going to force black people into that. That's what I saw. That's how I interpreted what happened with what's going on in DC on Monday. He is trying to get other people to fall in line, but I also think he fully intends to come in and try to dominate, because the fail-safes are not working. There's nothing there to stop him. There are things that should be stopping him, but there really is nothing there in place to stop him. And so this is very alarming, even though I think it could get to the court. I don't know. I have no faith in the court at this point, quite frankly, that they will do what they need to do. And like I said, right now, according to the home rule, he has the authority, it seems like, for these 30 days. Congress has to act. Will they act? I don't know. Even if they act, there's still lawsuits that could be filed. And again, this is something that's very new because the president hasn't had the need to do this before. But it's very concerning. And it's also very concerning because that press conference, again, was about, we're going to remove black people from power. But it was also about, we're going to clean up DC, which my translation was like, oh, you about to engage in police brutality and tell the police you can get away with it. So now you have black people going to be harassed, black and brown people are going to be harassed, the homeless are going to be harassed. And for what? You know what I mean? Like, what is the point? What are you trying to do? It's again like that one influencer whose name I don't recall and I don't care to recall, but where he was saying how it's about cleaning up the city. Which is essentially ethnic cleansing, right? You're trying to get rid of the people that don't look like you, and you're creating a crisis that does not exist. And it is very dangerous. It is extremely dangerous where we are right now. And I don't think you can overstate that. He is trying to remove we had black senators and representatives during Reconstruction. Starting with Hiram Revels, and then I think Blaine was the other one during Reconstruction. It was almost 100 years later before we had another senator with Edward Brooks. Almost 100 years, because we went back that badly. We are there. If we do not do something, we will get there again. We must act. There must be some form of resistance. The courts ain't going to save us, right? I don't know, and I'm not saying I don't know what to do, but there has to be some kind of counter-political action that we must take, because you can't just assume it can't happen, because it can't. It has happened. We can't go back to Jim Crow. And if we let them, they will even bring us back into the cotton fields. It may sound crazy, but it's not. So we have to say, no, we will not go back to Jim Crow 2.0. We will not go to Jim Crow 2.0. We have to stand up and do something. There has to be some kind of call to action. Obviously peaceful call to action, but a strategic call to action nonetheless. We cannot be complacent in a time like this. We must act. But you let me know. What do you think? I know I say this in every segment, but truly, what is the strategy? Because the house is on fire and we need some water. Where do we get it? How do we stop the fire from spreading? Now is the time to be very sober about that. Leave me a comment. Leave me a message on what do you think is the proper strategy. I would love love to know and to collaborate, because I think this is something we need to be doing and take very seriously at this point. All right, now that we've gone through the church, the court, all the heaviness, I have to, of course, bring it back. You can't get light. It's kind of lighter, but it's not. It's still all these things are all connected. And that is, first of all, what is going on with the Kennedy Center Instagram page? Like, who's running? I mean, obviously it's the Trump administration, but it's like, oh my, how old, like, who is doing this? It's embarrassing. That's the whole thing about this, the president, like that press conference that he did. It was just, I was embarrassed as an American just to have him up there. It's just very embarrassing. But whoever's running that Instagram page, it's embarrassing. But nevertheless, scrolling through, this all happened within a week. All of this within a week. I'm scrolling through and I see that they are doing a red carpet event, a film premiere for Revival Nation. How Generation Z is returning to Jesus. It is a film that was produced or put forth by none other than the Christian Broadcasting Network. Yes, that organization that was founded by Pat Robertson. That one, yes. The Kennedy Center is going to play their film about the Revival Nation, about Jesus returning. I have so many thoughts about that, but I watched the trailer because, again, this also, to me, it's just the same thing with the white Christian nationalists, right? Or the Christian nationalists, Doug Wilson's people. I'm watching it. I don't know if you all have seen the documentary Shiny Happy People season 2, but it's about teen mania and that movement and how it took teens who wanted to be on fire for Christ, and just was like a cult and craziness that happened, right? So I'm watching the trailer for the Revival Nation, and I'm like, oh, this is the other side of the coin of Shiny Happy People, right? This is, or the precursor to the Shiny Happy People season, whatever this is going to be. You just know, as I'm looking at this, I'm like, where have I seen this? Is very familiar. This is just the current version of Shiny Happy People or Teen Mania. It's taken the fervor and the desire of a generation. I do think people are probably looking for something and meaning in general, and converting it into something else that is just going to be off-putting for people. Now, I do think there are a lot of people will still love it and still go there, but I was like, this is very familiar. Again, very white. There were a few Black people sprinkled in. Same thing with Teen Mania. It was largely a white movement. It's like you want to spread the gospel to the world, but you only got one group of people, and where's the diversity there? Oh, DEI, that's right, that's the right. It's like you're not diverse, like you're missing out. You want to reach people, but you don't want them a part of your own organization. You're not really embracing them in the same way. It reminds me of, I remember back where I'm from, in Florida, of course, where this local church decided to do mission work into this white church, do mission work into this Black neighborhood to invite the youth in. They do, and it was great. And it was very successful. But then the Black students, it kept growing and growing. They wanted to stay and go and attend. And then the white parents were like, no, we're not trying to have these Black students actually engage in Bible study with us. That's not what we're trying to do. And so they ended up having a segregated Bible study. And that's how I got involved, because they're like, we need people to help teach. And I was just like, what is happening? You wanted them in. You wanted to go out and proselytize to this neighborhood. It was successful, and then you wanted to exclude them. So you had 2 different Bible studies where you was differently funded. It's wild. It's one of those memories that just popped up. You get triggered. And so it's the same thing. I'm looking at this Revival Nation, Teen Mania. I was like, y'all, this is all theoretical. But until you have to be about it before you go out and revive and do whatever it is you're going to do. But I'm just like, I've seen this before. This is not new. And unfortunately, I hope people take their fervor and their dedication to God seriously and do whatever. But I'm concerned. I'm greatly concerned, because I'm like, I feel like this is going to be Shiny Happy People season whatever, right? In 30 years, there'll be another documentary about what was really going on at these revivals. But that also may just be my pessimism, but it was really like, no, this is this is clearly trying to happy people, but before it happens. This is if somebody were making a documentary about Teen Mania before all the craziness, this is what the trailer would look like. Anyway, that's going to be at the Kennedy Center, which is not the purpose of what that place was for. It's about the arts, and obviously it's a film, so that's part of the arts, but this film is not about just an artistic expression. It's just a proselytizing tool, which again seems to be a theme here with this administration, to try to present yourself as a pluralistic society and administration. You really are just very heavy on the Christian, very heavy on the white Christian perspective. And that's problematic. That's problematic for different reasons. And so that's going to be at the Kennedy Center, though, later this month. I'm tempted to see. We'll see what happens. We'll see who's on the red carpet. Be interesting to see who attends this red carpet premiere and what becomes of the Kennedy Center Instagram page. Leave me a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Again, I probably am just like, I'm seeing stuff everywhere, but it's like, I can't help it. It's just because it is everywhere. It is absolutely everywhere. All right. Lastly, before I head out, because I'm about to head out, this took a little longer than I expected. But, well, not really, because I knew I was, like I said, I almost came on live on Monday. It's like, this is madness. Nevertheless, I want to end with a book recommendation that I just feel like is very appropriate. There's so many different books that my mind was thinking, but the one that came to mind for this week is Faces at the Bottom of the Well by Derrick Bell, one of the progenitors of critical race theory, the one that has been maligned greatly, but critical race theory is not what people think it is. But anyway, this book, it's a series of essays. That's what his books are. Often it's wonderful. But particularly, because if you don't have time to read the whole book, I really just want you to focus on the essay, the short story rather, called Space Traders. I'll set it up for you real quick. Space Traders now it's in the past when it was supposed to take place. But it was at that point, sometime in the future, America's economy is in the crapper. The environment is in the crapper. Sounds familiar. And these aliens come from outer space and like, listen, we got this machine to help you clean up your environment. We'll give you all this gold to get you out of debt. We just want one thing, all you black people. I'm going to give you 3 days to think about it. And that's what the story really picks up from. Like, so then you have all these different people talking about what happens when you remove black people. Like, who actually needs black people in society to work? Who needs them to be scapegoats? Who thinks that they are the bane of their existence and need to be gone, and why? And so as I'm thinking about Trump in DC and what he's doing and his declaration that he's going to do it to other black cities, read Space Traders and sort of think about that and think about how we are a necessary component of American society. And yet there are people who are willing to let us go and people who are willing to fight for us, to keep us there because they need us. And it may not be the people you think, or maybe it is the people you think who will be there. But I think this is an important time to sit back and like, what do black people bring? And how do we then use that to answer that question that I posed earlier, which is what do we do when we know our worth and our value and what we bring? Because ultimately, if they remove us from society, it will collapse, right? They need us. They need us for something. If nothing else, just the scapegoat, right? They need us in order. The rich need us, right? To scapegoat. Somebody has to be the scapegoat. Someone has to be the other. And so some level, that is a role we play. And so some power structures require that. But anyway, read the Space Traders. I think it's a great time. And read the whole book, Faces at the Bottom of the Well. Just a reflection on race and society. And think about that as we think about what should we do? What should be the political response to what is happening in our country? I think we've been complacent way too long. It's August, okay? We can't keep this up. We have to do something. And I appreciate what Gavin Newsom is doing through his social media, just sort of the mocking Trump, threatening him tit for tat, saying, yes, I'll be petty, you petty, I'll be petty right on back. I appreciate something. What else can we do in that vein? Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for joining me here with this episode of The Church, the Court, and the Culture. If you haven't already, please be sure to follow me again on Substack. You can follow me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me personally on social media. I'm at Paluki's World everywhere except TikTok, where I'm just Paluki. Leave me a comment. I would love to know your thoughts. Or if you want to send me a funny meme, I love that. If you have an idea for a show, an episode, I would love to know that as well. Until next time, you all take care. Peace.